This is Talk of the Town, a weekly program featuring community events happening in and around Northeast Michigan, with your host, Nancy Smitham, and get the latest from Alpena Community College with Dr. Don McMaster. And now, today's Talk of the Town.
Good morning and welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Nancy Smitham. My first two guests today are both from Besser Museum. I have Chris Witulski and Maggie Malone. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Nancy.
And I'm so happy to have you here to hear about all the wonderful things that are going on at the museum. But first of all, you brought a guest with you today.
Well, last time I talked to you, said that we have a new staff, new members, and that I would bring our new collections manager, Maggie Malone, to meet you. And so I'll let Maggie introduce herself and what all she's been doing at the Besser Museum since she arrived.
Hi, Maggie, and welcome to Alpena. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. It's an amazing opportunity that I came into here.
And I bet you were amazed when you saw the collections.
I was. I am always interested in knowing the extent of any museum's collection, but especially the one in which I'm working. So one of the first things I did was to get an introduction into the collections, and we start talking about plans on where we want to go from here so that we can continue to progress.
You know, and it's always so exciting, as Chris pointed out to me. I've been doing this show for many years, and you know, sometimes collections that haven't been out in 10, 15, 20 years, you bring them out with a program, a new show or something, and it's so exciting because people get to see them again that hadn't had the opportunity to see them. So kind of tell me some of your plans.
Well, that's a very interesting question, and sort of not quite a loaded question, but we're continuing to make plans as we go. Right now, I am working on the collections policy. We are going to be doing a full inventory of the collections, because some of the things that our patrons don't get to see for 10 years, we might not have seen either. Well, and I've never seen them.
Okay.
So
that's a good timing, yeah.
Yes, exactly. It gets me a chance to get into the collections and better understand what we have, what we need from the community as well, and how we can look into best preserving them for the next 100, 500 years.
And planning for what we collect also, like she said, what we have and what we need. And so a lot of times the collections plan is just that. We already have enough typewriters to tell the story, or we have enough wedding dresses, or we might have enough farming implements. And so we have a generous community that often thinks about the Besser Museum when they are cleaning out their great-grandmother's home, or they have something that they think is really valuable, but we do have limited space and limited resources to care for the collections. And so, as Maggie said too, museums normally do a complete inventory every 10 years.
Okay.
And so it is to see what exhibits that we can plan in the future, but also what we need to actively collect. And so with Maggie being brand new, she comes to us with lots of experience, 9 years experience plus. She was just the perfect candidate to step into this role.
And you know, Chris, when I think about all those collections, and when I think today is history, so in 5 years, things that happen today will be things that you'll need to have at the museum to preserve that part of history. So yes, it would be an ongoing job.
Constantly ongoing. And the other thing too that Maggie is really working to educate the community and our board members that come in, and even our staff that might not be connected to collections, on best practices. And so a lot of times, and we're seeing it already, when someone comes in and says, I've got this great item, I just want to drop it off. It's like, oh, you got to fill out this application. And it's like 3 pages. It's pretty in-depth. And she can explain why we have this new application process.
And so the reason why is because without the information behind it, it's just an object. That chair is just a chair unless we know its history.
The president sat in here in 1519 and gave a speech. Okay, that makes sense.
And so when we talk about its history, that's provenance. And so what we're looking for is the who, what, where, when, why, how for that specific item. If you can date it all the way back from the manufacturer, that would be great. But knowing who owned it, is it a family heirloom, and even knowing, say, if it was your great-grandmother's chair, her birth and death dates,
Oh,
you know,
perfect.
that sort of thing, so that when we bring it out on exhibit, we have that information to better tell the story. Because when you go to a museum, sometimes it's just facts and that sort of thing, but if we can make it relatable,
Right.
that's key to bringing people in some more.
Well, and our museum is, you know, does such a fantastic job about keeping everything local and using things from local people. I mean, when you've had your World War II, your Vietnam vets, your Vietnam era exhibits, Korean War, all those things you do, you have stories and artifacts and things from local people, so that makes it personal and it makes everybody want to see it.
Right, and that's a challenge too. We have people that have some really nice things, but there's really no relative person to connect them to Alpena. So that's hard. It's like you have a lovely chair or a lovely painting or a lovely something, but our mission is for Northeast Michigan. We do have some art, and this was something that Maggie and I talked about because she couldn't quite understand that we are 3 museums in one. We're fine art, we're history, and we're science. And so we're not, our art doesn't just pertain to Northeast Michigan, although we do have Northeast Michigan
Right.
artists. We have regional, we have international, we have world renowned, and that was because Jesse Besser wanted to bring the outside world into his hometown and give them opportunities to see fine art, to go to the planetarium, to see a Foucault pendulum. But as far as history is concerned, we really do try to focus on regional Northeast Michigan.
Okay, we're getting close to running out of time, so we want to talk about volunteers today.
Right, and so to help us get a handle on the collections and perform data entry, get the information for the future, what we are doing is research projects. Basically, one of the first ones that I've developed is a volunteer will help us research artist information, which needs to go into our database system.
Okay.
From there, I will potentially use those same individuals to help me with the inventory, help me do various things. So this is the first step, me seeing, you know, how well I can use these prospective
So you're looking
volunteers.
for a volunteer.
And lots of volunteers, and they can do it from home. This project.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Yes.
The research project, absolutely. Detail-oriented, you know, Maggie will have to interview volunteers for this project, but for other projects, eventually there will be where they can get into the collections and work with Maggie on those things.
Oh, perfect.
So yeah, if there's people that are interested, we get lots of people that would like to volunteer, but this has a certain skill set that she would interview these volunteers to
Okay,
see if
so
they
what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The best way would be to email me, and that is collections@bessermuseum.org.
Okay, thank you both
Yes,
very much
thanks,
for being
Nancy.
here. Look forward to talking to you next month.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll be right back with Eric Magnus Eubanks from Alpena County Library following these messages. Hi, welcome back. As promised, I'm with Eric Magnus Eubank from Alpena County Library. Hi, Eric.
Hello, Nancy. How are you today?
Good, and you said August was a little bit slow, but September's starting out very quick.
You know, we started off, the first day of August was the carnival, and you know, as a staff, we kind of feel like collapsing
Yes,
right
I'm
after
sure you do.
that, and you know, we catch our breath, but we're going to make up for it in September and October, and it's an incredibly busy time from the middle of September really until the first week of November is the next time we're catching our breath.
Okay, and you brought a book with you, and I think it has a story.
It does
Other
have
than
a
the
story.
one between the pages.
So, well, and it's a great story between the pages, and we do our fall authors, and we tend to do a community read around that, and it's a little bit different this time around in that our fall speaker this year is Lynn Novick, who is the co-producer and co-director of the PBS Vietnam War documentary with Ken Burns, and
Wow.
she's won Emmy and Peabody Awards for her work on those documentaries. She also worked with them on the Civil War, baseball, Prohibition. She's a very important filmmaker in her own right, and so Thursday, October 11th at Alpena High School. Tickets are $10. It's at 7 o'clock at night, and we've gotten a tremendous response already for it. But as she's a filmmaker and we're a library that does reading, we had to kind of stretch and think, well, what are we going to do for a community read? And there is a book around the documentary, but it's like a $50 coffee table book, and that's not what you want to do your community read around. So one of the prominent persons interviewed in the documentary was the author Tim O'Brien, who is an infantry vet who's written a number of works, but the things that they carried was a book he wrote about 20 years ago. It's fiction, and it's widely considered the best piece of literature that's come out of the Vietnam War. And it's a collection of stories that, in some ways, fiction can capture more truth than truth sometimes. And so we wanted a book that had a lot of literary quality, but is still widely accessible. Now, I will say it is, in one sense, an easy read, but in another sense is a hard thing to read, even though they've used it in high school classes and things like that.
Well, I know you've intrigued me. I want to read it now.
You have been warned that you won't look at things the same way again. So that's our community read this year, and it's not the same as Linovic. We've also put together a number of programs and speakers starting in the middle of September. For this, we have a Friday afternoon lunch series, a whole month of Friday lunch lectures at noon. That's going to kick off on Friday, September 14th with Professor Charles Keith at MSU, who's a specialist on Vietnam, and he's written an important book on the role of Catholicism in South Vietnamese society. So this is a program called Catholic Vietnam, and he's actually appearing to us live via video conference from MSU. It's something a little new that we're trying. The following Friday, we're doing the history of Wurtsmith Air Force Base and the role it played during Vietnam with Harry McCowan, who's a docent at the Wurtsmith Air Museum, followed by our the county's very own George Stevens, who's the Director of Veterans Affairs, and talking about the things that they do to serve our veterans and things of that nature. And then following that is a book discussion of the things that we carried. And then we have a few other events going on that are one's a little off the wall, but on September 20th at 7 o'clock, we're having the Detroit Historical Society is doing a special program on 1968, the Year of the Tiger, and it's on the role that year's the 1968 Detroit Tigers played in keeping the city together a year after the riots. The assassinations of King and Bobby Kennedy, the launch of the Tet offensive. So something a little bit different, but that team has a special place in everyone's heart.
And I love the Vietnam. That was my era, and I had brothers where you prayed they didn't get drafted, and I had friends who did get drafted, and I think of the life changes for people who did go to war and people who didn't go to war. So this is a wonderful series. Should be very poignant and very, very well felt in our community.
I think we've gotten a tremendous response already, and I expect that people will like what we've put together.
And like we were talking with our first guest from the museum, we're so blessed to have someone of the caliber coming to our community where we can be up close and personal and get an opportunity to meet with them and talk with them and listen to them, sitting just in an auditorium and close up.
Yeah, it's, the guiding principle for these series, we've done a number of these, is it's a simple question that's hard to answer, and that's who's the best person in the world we can get to come to Alpena that year, and we go with the person that has the best answer to that question. But that's how we look at it. We're looking for you know, Alpena deserves world class, and we try to provide world class.
And year after year after year, you do that, and like I said, we get to see plays, events, activities, events like yours in our community that people in big communities can't even get, and we're so blessed.
Yeah, and we've got a special additional prize this year. We haven't, this is the first we've announced this, but Saturday, November 3rd, we're also having Mitch Albom coming to.
You are.
So, and that's a special arrangement with Mitch actually reached out to us for this visit. So there will be more of this coming out probably at the next Talk of the Town, but
that's pretty exciting.
You know, so
I see his picture in the Detroit Free Press every morning.
Yeah, and he has quite a following that he's earned over the years.
Oh yes. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Eric, and thank you to your staff for pulling off that wonderful summer carnival and for all the work and time and energy that went into putting this series together. And I look forward to hearing about the success and hopefully being part of many of them.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Please stay tuned for Dr. Don McMaster following these messages.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Dr. Don McMaster, president of Alpena Community College, and I would like to take the show a little different direction this morning. We recently passed a millage renewal vote on August 7th, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank the voters of Alpena County and in Presque Isle and Krakow County up in Presque Isle County for their support, or for your support. And the vote turned out to be about 65% yes, 35% no, so a little less than 2 to 1, but certainly a margin that indicated to us that the community feels positive about the college and is willing to continue to support for another 10 years the tax revenue that comes to the college out of your tax bill. So I'd like to thank you all very much for that. And I'd also like to share with you what your investment in the college results in. So I did a fair amount of work out in the community, went to virtually all of the township board meetings in July, gave presentations at the college, about the college at service clubs, and probably 20 presentations in all, and learned a lot. Learned a lot about the community, learned a lot about what the community thinks about the college. These are important things. And also I learned that there were many things that the college has done, once they're aggregated, that the community didn't know about. And so it was a good two-way opportunity to communicate. And I think we need to do as much as we can of that. So these are some of the things that I shared about the college during those presentations, things that happened in the last year. So we earned 10 years reaccreditation from the Higher Learning Commission. This is the organization that confirms that we operate with integrity, that we do what we say we're going to do, that we follow best practices as established by the Higher Learning Commission. And they visited us in September, brought a team out, and they gave us a very glowing review. We were pleased by that. And the qualitative part of their assessment said that there were many great things going on at Alpena Community College, but the thing that they were most pleased by, or the thing that was most notable, was how everyone at the college seemed to be pulling in the same direction. And that was a very good thing to hear. I agree with that. It's not something that we take lightly, and it was nice to hear. So we obtained 10 years of reaccreditation from the Higher Learning Commission, very significant. We settled 3 labor agreements. We have 3 bargaining units at the college, and all 3 of those signed 4-year agreements. We feel that they were fair agreements, and we employ 114 full-time people at the college. We have 199 part-timers. Many of those are adjuncts. And harmonious, productive working relationships are very important, really, to the bottom line product, which is what happens in the classroom. So we feel very good about that. We obtained, for our Van Laer Hall renovation project, a capital outlay appropriation of $3,350,000 from the state. That may be the largest capital outlay appropriation the college has ever gotten. I haven't checked into that, but very substantial. We were one of 4 community colleges to be in that bill. Our athletics team in the area of athletics earned academic All-American status, something we're very proud of them. Proud of Coach Jacobs for those efforts. That means that cumulatively the team attained a grade point average of 3.7 or above, and there were maybe a half dozen or less teams do that around the nation. Our line workers team won the national championship in the National Collegiate Linemen's Rodeo competition in Nebraska, a very prestigious accomplishment. Our concrete tech program celebrated 50 years, a very productive training for folks that enter the concrete industry. As many of you know, it's a very unique program, something that's been a spine of the college for 50 years. And we participated with Besser Company and an Israeli startup company called E-Concrete, and developed an environmentally sensitive break wall product that was honored at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. in June. A very, very interesting and an event that made us proud to be involved with Besser Company and what they're doing. We have earned from the Aspen Institute, we've been honored as the top 150 community college, one of the top 150 community colleges in the country. A very prestigious award, and it's really based on their assessment of our data. And some strengths of our data is completion. That is, students who come graduate with a credential, and we are very high in that area. That's an important metric, obviously, for everyone. Our data shows that compared to the other small, rural, outsized community colleges, where our graduation rate or completion rate is about twice theirs. So that means if you come to Alpena Community College, you'll get a credential, and you will graduate at a high rate. So these are a few of the things that we've done over the past year. We, again, are very grateful for your voting for the Millage Renewal. We look forward to 10 more years of productive work together until we come to the voters again. So thank you very much for watching Talk of the Town, and we'll see you again next week.
This has been Talk of the Town with your host, Nancy Smitham and Dr. Don McMaster. For a list of community events taking place in Northeast Michigan, please visit our website at wbkb11.com and click on our community link. This has been a Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation production.